Here is the moderator, Jonathan Edelheit, co-founder and CEO of Medical Tourism Association, and other members of this plenary session are George Vassev, or probably George Vassev, yeah, because it's from Bulgaria. Yes, George Vassev, Chief Consultant and General Surgeon at Adapta Group, Bulgaria. George. Then Doreen Schiegenhauf, I just think that it's okay, Head of Medical Claims, Case Management, Underwriting, AAR Health Services, Uganda. Is it okay? Doreen, thank you. And Matija Fucek, General Sales Manager, Croatia Health Insurance Group, Croatia Health. Well. Jonathan, just be in time, please. Okay? Try to be, because at the end of this, we will have coffee break for good night.
This session will be so energetic and riveting, they won't need coffee afterwards.
Yeah.
So good afternoon, everyone. This is meant more as kind of a fireside chat or a open, a little bit of open forum and dialogue. So at any point, if anyone has any questions, of any of the panelists, feel free just to raise your hand or ask or shout it out. And I thought what we would do first is go around and have each panelist introduce themselves and their background, so you can get a perspective of where they're coming from and talk a little bit about what their company does. And then I'm going to be asking them, some of the important questions of how their organization works in the area of medical tourism. So we'll start with you.
Thank you. My name is Matija Fucek. I came from Croatia, from Leader One health insurer in Croatia called Croatia Health Insurance Group, Croatia Zdravstveno osiguranje. I'm in charge of general network sales, so I have pretty much experience in that field. So, as you know, we are, in one way, I will mention that later, we are related with selling one part of insurer which are connected with local health insurance and international health insurance. I would also like to say that I'm glad to be the part of this panel discussion, this conference, and that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. My name is Doreen Degeschlagenhoff. I'm representing AR Health Services. It's a private insurance company which has a geographical base in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and recently Zambia. We have a client base of 40,000 members who seek for medical services overseas through our case management departments. And our aim is to ensure that our clients get quality care and cost-effective outcomes. Yeah.
And finally me. I'm George Vassev, coming from Sofia, Bulgaria. I'm Chief Consultant of Adapta Group. This is a consultancy and facilitating company in Bulgaria. I'm just the chief consultant. My wife is the boss.
So I think the first question I'd like to ask, and you all don't have to answer it, whoever wants to answer it, or all of you, is, where do you see insurance and medical tourism headed in the future? Do you see greater adoption, and what is needed for more insurance companies and more individuals to actually utilize and travel for medical tourism?
Yeah, I can say a few things about that. So the biggest problem, the biggest gap is between a difference in concept. So as you know, in the main team, we already mentioned that we have government as a one concept of putting out the great input, the big volume buyers for health insurance, and also we have a private sectors, private insurers that are already doing that. The main difference in concepts will always be existing. The difference is the government has some bigger issues that are wanting to calculate in their decision to, as we already mentioned in the panel before, to fulfill the right of the insurers to have a claim of their insured product outside the country. So they are looking, the main driver for the government is political and most bigger picture of economic results of doing that. And the private insurers, they have a different concept, different driver. I would surely say it's a cost-benefit analysis, and the colleague will confirm when you are creating the product, the main problem is the claims ratio, the main problem is the price, and is it profitable? This is the main concept and the main driver for the private. And this gap between government as a government-based insurance, the big volume buyers, and the private insurers will always exist. So as you heard, we have a theory, what we want to do, how we can do to put this gap at a minimum, but the gap will always be there, and we need a new concept. I would also like to say that someone said that the first step needs to be done by the insurers companies. I think the first step needs to be done by by the interest groups like patients, and the first concrete step, I'm talking about experience in Croatia, needs to be done by the government. The first concrete step, we can say this, we can talk furthermore on, but the government needs to put this gap out of sync in the laws. For example, in Croatia we have a law for medical tourism, for medical law, and you have a law for tourism in general. So if you have few laws that are uncoordinated, the first step needs to be done by government. So this is in general what I wanted to say.
When you say patient groups,
yeah,
what do you mean? What is their responsibility in this?
Yeah, we have these institutions that are gathering called all kinds of patients. So they are one of the main interest groups that needs to claim their rights. So if we are in European Union and we have the main goal of European Union is to claim all kinds of rights throughout whole Europe, so I think they have a pretty good point to start investing in some action, concrete action within the field to claim their rights. So as you know, we have these medical checkpoints. So, but the procedure of using the medical therapy or something like that, which is covered in your insurance, your basis insurance, is far-fetched on. So, for example, you have government basis insurance, and they are prescribing the procedure that you need to fulfill to claim your rights. And this is the catch, the procedure. They will not say you don't have a right. They will say, okay, fulfill this paper and this. So we have some sort of red tape that is doing the main goal of the government through whole out of Europe of not using for insurers, for the patients, their rights. So if I don't see a problem if someone in Croatia wants to have a therapy in Germany or other way around, I don't see a reason why not. This is the European Union. This is our mission in European Union, and it needs to outflow in the medical tourism also, not only in the economy.
Great answer.
Yeah, thanks.
Do or no? You? Do you have any on the adoption of?
Okay, I will give you my opinion.
Okay. Sure, you can go.
I will give you my opinion. No two opinion that the insurer is the biggest buyer in the world in this market. But sometimes there is a big gap between the insurance companies and the hospitals. The insurance companies are saying, okay, you have the rights, go there. The hospitals usually say, okay, we are giving you the operation, but do what you want with the insurer. This gap between the insurer and the hospital usually is very dark for the patient. Not all of the patients are very clever. Not all of the patients have enough time to read all of the contracts and papers. That's why, for me, this gap can be for the medical facilitators, because the first facilitators, this is the rule of the facilitators. They can do this for the patients. They can communicate with the hospital and with the insurer, and to give some more clear vision for the patient for this one. Finally, we want patient to be satisfied from this treatment. That's why, for me, this is very important point of view.
You know, that's a good point on the facilitation side is, do insurance companies, need a facilitator in between them and the hospitals? And if not, what are some of the challenges, that come about? And maybe you can share some of the challenges you face when patients go to hospitals.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's a very important and it's very vital for the insurer and the hospital to have communication whereby trust is built, and we need to look at areas as far as quality from a holistic point of view is concerned. When we are sending the patients overseas, we look at credibility of the facility, the success rates of the people who are going to work on the patients. We look at affordability, which is a relative term because we wouldn't send a patient to a hospital where the procedure will be half the amount of the quoted amount, then it turns out to have a repeat visit or a complication based on the service that was given. So we ensure that all the hospitals that we send our patients to are accredited, either through a third-party system, in that they can verify for us through their due diligence checks and tell us that these hospitals are accredited either by JCIA or other bodies, so that we can make sure that our patients get quality care and cost-effective outcomes.
Okay. I would like to add on. For example, during my experience in Croatia, we have the biggest issue with hospital is they are not management-oriented. So they are, I would say, medical-oriented, focused on medical and expertise, and that's okay. But if you don't have this economy in yourself, this management, you have a big problems, like doing elementary economic analysis, like cost-benefit, SWOT, all sort of stuff that you need to promote this hospital, this medical service throughout the world. So this is the biggest issue in Croatia. I'm talking only about Croatia. This is maybe the biggest infrastructure issue, because we have infrastructure, but we are not using it right. So this is the biggest issue of doing something in the claims process.
From the African context, the main issue that we have is the continuity of care, where we have a patient getting services which are at the top-notch advanced technology from the overseas provider. Then when they return back home and the local community, we're not able to offer them the same service they got from the overseas provider. So it brings about a challenge on how you can manage the patient's health, and the continuity of care is disrupted. So we have more of complications from the surgery or post-operative complications, and we have to keep on sending the patient back to the main provider who did the service initially, so that they can be able to be treated. Because in Africa we lack even the basic, like a PET CT scan. It's not in East Africa. So it's a main challenge to continue with the follow-up and the diagnosis, but through telemedicine with other partners that we have, and through reciprocal visits and trainings, we have the doctors from the overseas providers come and train our doctors on how they can manage this particular post-operative complications, or how they can manage the patients who've been treated abroad. So that helps in bridging the gap, but it's still a main challenge that we're facing.
You know, one question I have is, how do the patients choose the hospital? Are they choosing, do you think they're choosing through the insurance company? Do you think they're choosing on their own? How do we steer patients in the future? And is it the patient's responsibility, the insurer's responsibility, or on a global scale of medical tourism, does the hospital have any responsibility to, make them a desire of patients who might otherwise not know that they're there?
If I may say, during our experience, we are selling fronting the one international product, So I would give you almost direct answer. It depends on the system you have. So if you are fronting like we do, we are selling in Croatia Best Doctors. It's one great product that you can, if you are an insured person, that you have if you have a claim, you can do this treatment outside the country. It's obligatory. Only you can do it outside the country. So when I'm saying about system, it's about what is the system of a claims handling process that is set up by the best doctors. So the process is when claim happens, they need to call the best doctors, they need to fulfill the process order, and the best doctors is, you have this written in terms and conditions if you're an insured person. So the best doctors is a medical relevant to give the institution which they think it is right for you. So, okay, you can choose one of the three institutions. They give you the choice, but ultimately they are the system that is very good, that is very essential for giving the claims handling process to one institution of their own choosing. So the real strength in this system is in best doctors, not in us. For example, like Croatian health insurance, who is selling. We are only selling the product. So I think it depends on the system. But if you are talking about basic government insurance and using the claims outside the country, it depends on the choosing. And this is ultimately the subjective way of thinking of this insured person. Why is he wants to go to this country? Maybe it's close. It depends on the brand, on the promotion. Maybe it's a tourist country. Maybe he wants to accompany a family and stuff like that. Yeah.
Maybe just to add on what my colleague has said, the three parties have a key role in choosing the medical hospital. The patient has a right of choice. The insurer will just front which hospitals are available for the procedure in context. For example, if we want to do a cardiac bypass, we will give the patient options or available options of the hospitals that they can choose from, and will ensure that these hospitals are in a working relationship with us, or we have MOU with them. They're accredited. So the hospital also has a role to play in that what they have sold to us as the insurer, or what we have seen in their success rates as far as their previous procedures are concerned, are of very good standards, because medical tourism is not about the brochure anymore. I will not believe your services just because you have an excellent presentation. We need to go down to the basics and look at the quality of care. Is it safe? Is it effective? Is it affordable? So we need to look at it from the holistic point of view, where both three players have a part to play as far as choosing the destination.
I will spare our experience in this field, of course. Our company generally is a consultancy company. The policy of our company is to give the patient some options, and after that to explain the patients. The first option is best, that the price is the best. The second option is the best, that the doctor is the best. The third is the best because of the hospital. And usually we explain the patient all of the possibilities and all of the pluses, all of the minuses. And finally the patient say, I will choose this one because this is the best price for me, or something else. I think that this is correct, but this is our idea, to know everybody, every one hospital, every one doctor, how he is doing, how he is presenting himself. If we are not know this doctor or this hospital, we are calling the colleagues abroad, asking them, tell us, is the doctor the best, is the hospital the best, is the hospital correct, because this is the big problem for our part of the Europe. If you are going to some hospitals abroad, they giving you one price. After that, the price is not the same, the price is going up. This is a big problem for a big part of the patients. If finally, when the patient is choosing the hospital and the doctors, we are supporting him for everything during the stay in the hospital. Because you know, the hospital staff is very experienced, but they are medical staff. Usually the hospitals have not enough people to support, to give the answers, even for small questions for the patients. That's why, for me, it's very important to have this small chain in this big chain, the mediators or the facilitator.
Yeah. So, if I may conclude, the answer for your question is very simple. Who pays the service will choose the provider, and that's the only. If someone is paying for the medical treatment by their own private money, they will choose the institution, the provider they want, and they have their own reason. Surely we have statistics why are choosing using this and that hospital. We have a great example in Jordan, which is like progressively lurking in this way of health tourism. I think I only look at the statistics, but when I looked at it, I would surely recommend our government to use this model, like in Jordan, and surely I think this is the answer.
When you know, I think some of the issues out there, pricing or hospitals, you know, you're saying, you know, they're coming in with one price, then there's a price later, complications, legal issues. For any, you know, hospitals or healthcare providers that are here, what would be some guidance that you'd say of these are things not to do?
Difficult question. Very difficult to say how to avoid this problem. But usually we say to people that for this hospital this is possible to be done. Have in mind that usually it's heaven sometimes. Have in mind that they can change the price. After that, no law regulations between the countries. No, very difficult to go to judge somebody for some incorrect price. But you know, the name of this hospital will be compromised after that. And the good hospitals never allow them to do this. But usually we say the patients have in mind that there is a problem with the price.
Do you think it's that price change for some of these hospitals is coming from the executive C-suite, or is it the international patient department? And the reason I ask...
Usually for the international patients.
Yeah. So do you think that the medical officer, the CEO of the hospital potentially don't know that the international patient department is jeopardizing their brand?
I'm sure that they know.
Yeah. What about the issues of complications? Has that come up for anyone where they've had patients travel under insurance and complications have occurred where there's potential now liability for the insurance company or the referrer?
From a personal experience through our insurance company, we've had a patient who we've sent for surgery in Hospital X in India. I won't mention the name. And it's unfortunate that they left a gauze inside the patients after the surgery. So it was very difficult during the mediation on the medical legal issues. And what I'd like to front to the participants and the rest of the fora here is how best can we handle medical legal issues going forward, because this is a relationship you're trying to create between a hospital, which is miles away. You've built trust with the client to believe that this is the best hospital. If they go to this hospital, they'll be fine and everything. Then something unfortunate happens. So how best could we all spearhead bridging the gap on medical legal issues? I think that's a question that I'd want all the participants to contribute to. Yeah.
And I mean, does anyone up here, or potentially does anyone in the audience have any suggestions on how do you reduce liability? So, you know, if the insurance company is sending a patient abroad and the hospital leaves gauze in the patient and there's a complication and the insurance company gets sued, how does the insurance company protect themselves? Because the insurance company is in the country of the patient.
Yeah.
So the patient's going to look at, who do I sue?
Yeah.
It's difficult to sue the hospital in India. You know, some organizations are, you know, having the patients sign a waiver saying that when they go to travel for care, they're only going to be litigation in the foreign country. For example, in that case, it would be I'm only going to bring litigation or a lawsuit in India. Of course, we know if they bring a lawsuit in India, they can't really bring a lawsuit in India, just because the legal system there can take literally 20, 30, 40 years for a court case to go through. Because that's going to be a gap in the industries, and if that liability happened over and over and over again, at some point the insurance company is going to say, I'm no longer going to send the patient abroad. Is it creating international arbitration or mediation? Where does that potentially happen? And I think a question in that case with the Indian patient was, did you choose the hospital or did the patient choose the hospital?
From the alternatives that we gave, the patient chose that specific hospital, but we did not have a memorandum of understanding as yet with that particular hospital. But since the patient has the right of choice, you wouldn't want to send them either to a hospital in Turkey, yet they are inclined more to this one in India or another country. So we depended on the fact that a relationship had been started with a particular hospital and the patient's right of choice. So it was very difficult during the arbitration because one, an MOU had not been signed off, and secondly, it was the patient's choice. So it was very good that we had like a medical introduction form for the patient when they signed off on, in case anything happens on this hospital that you've chosen, you'll be responsible. But moving forward, how can other players, or how will we mediate this gap? Because by stopping the traffic, or by us not sending patients to this particular hospital, it still doesn't change the fact that it can happen in a different hospital. So what is the way forward, and how can we close that gap?
I think this is the issue when you have a big list of providers like hospital. This is the main issue. I think I must say it's a business risk. So the solution for that liability, for example, Best Doctors solved it like filtering providers. So they gave these 3 institutions. They have a good business relationship, a good cooperative relationship. So if you have this with the hospital, and if it's a long term, I think the risk is like going down. So you can reduce the risk by filtering the whole list, the high list of the providers. I think maybe it's one way of the solution. Second solution, also business solution. It's you need to be reinsured. You need to have insurance policy for liability.
We do.
So, okay, this is only the business issue.
Yeah.
We can talk about brand, okay, or promotion, because we have brand damage or promotion damage if that happens or if media finds out. So you can't calculate it in a business risk, but only in terms of money you have a reinsurance policy. So it's not. If you are sued, you need to negotiate and fulfill this insurance agreement with the reinsurers that you have. So that's only natural. This is one way of solving, not completely, but one way of solving this high risk that we have.
Thank you.
In the case of the gauze being left in, what was the response of the hospital?
Unfortunately, we didn't have a good response from the hospital because we had already effected the payments. So once we brought it on board or to the attention that this had happened, at first they replied to the email, but then they shied away, and that was it. They never got back to us. We didn't expect to have the matter taken lightly, but it's unfortunate that that's the route it went. So from then, as he said, we have like a reinsurance policy which is on board just to mitigate that should it happen again. But I think we all need to put into consideration that this is something that may happen. So all of us need to have a clear way forward on what can be done to close the gap.
Yeah. So if I may add, if the hospital has a low price of some medical treatment or service, some sort, if they had reinsurance policy for liability, the price would and will go up. So it's almost like a business question. If you don't have a liability, you have a low price of medical treatment, diagnosis, or some sort of stuff. So,
And you know, and one solution too is to negotiate with the hospitals to, you know, potentially increase their price and to actually cover the cost of complications. You know, I've seen that happen also. So whether it's, you know, they buy a policy or they self-insure, you know, and they know, hey, complications going to happen in 2 to 3% of the cases, we're going to charge $1,000 more per procedure and then cover the cost of complications.
but you cannot do that if you have a list of 10,000 hospitals, for example.
Yeah, no, that makes it a little bit more difficult.
That's why no need to 2,000, maybe 20.
Yeah.
No
Yeah,
need,
like that.
of course.
Um,
Actually, a question for Jonathan. Everyone knows me by now. Does Medical Tourism Association helps in cases like this? Do you have inquiries coming to your inbox in regards to this? Jonathan, help. You know, we're having this kind of case. What can you do for us?
we do. I mean, we prefer to deal with the situation before it turns negative. Meaning we've helped arbitrate or try to resolve things and for patients and others, and typically it ends up happening where a lot of it we're doing it for organizations that aren't even members of ours, meaning it's a patient or it could be an insurance company or someone who had a bad outcome at a hospital, and we've been brought in to help resolve resolve it for the patient and help them out. And we do it kind of as a service, one, just to protect patients, but also to, I would say, protect the reputation of the industry. Because one negative story can erase 1,000 positive stories in the media. And there's, we've seen it all from, patients being sent to facilities that don't have good quality because, someone's getting paid an extra 5% commission, to finding out that there was a bad outcome and the international patient director didn't give didn't put the patient with the best doctor at the hospital. Instead, he put him with his brother-in-law. They're trying to cover up the fact that there's a relationship. To hospital potentially taking a patient where you end up talking to the patient, and we've had this happen with patients sometimes going to Mexico, where the patient, there was something psychologically wrong with them. And that this patient should have never traveled for bariatric care, and why did this hospital ever accept this patient? There's a company in the U.S., a facilitation company, that's in bankruptcy right now called Satori. The CEO of that company, before he started this company, spent 5 years in federal prison and was ordered to pay $50 million in restitution, apparently, for allegedly taking money from doctors. And so they were doing facilitation, and hospitals actually, surprisingly, contracted with them to receive their patients. And in those hospitals that did, I even told them, don't, whatever you do, don't front them money, meaning they make them pay you up front for their patients. And of course, there's hospitals that came to us recently to say, hey, we got a bankruptcy notice and they owe us $60,000 or $15,000. And I was like, well, what are you thinking? But I'd heard from one hospital in Costa Rica that facilitation company, they would get a patient from them. And then when the patient came, they would find out that the patient been rejected from 3 hospitals and they had all these terrible conditions and complications, and they would have never taken the patient, and they're at risk. So there's a lot of things that happen that can go wrong, and we're in medical care, so there's always going to be complications. Even if you send them to the best hospital and best doctor, things are going to go wrong, and that you have to really mitigate your risk. And there's some things that that you can do, and we provide to members contracts that they can sign. Whether it's facilitators signing a contract with hospitals, contracts between hospitals and facilitators to limit risk, patient waiver forms where the patient is waiving the risk. We can help set up networks where we negotiate the hospitals to be put in the contract, whether it's a direct relationship with the hospital or through us, so that those contracts protect the insurance company or the referring party from risk. Because let's face it, it's business. If a hospital's trying to get a contract with a facilitator, they're going to want the contract in favor of the hospital. And they're going to want all the liability on the facilitator and vice versa. So you really have to know how to draft those contracts and how the different laws apply. And then also there's, I think there's opportunities for us to be an intermediary and, having the contract some kind of arbitration or mediation, that where, it can be us or we bring people in to do the mediation between the hospital and the patient. But those are things that the insurance company can put in place, the hospital can be put in place, but they need to be addressed ahead of time to say, this is how we're going to manage it when things go wrong. Because the reality is things are going to go wrong. For anyone who's in this business and says, well, I'll deal with it when it comes, that's the wrong time to deal with it, because then people panic and they make bad decisions. Like in the example of your Indian hospital who decided to shut down, that's a typical response in the US, because in the US there's medical malpractice laws that are crazy. So the doctor knows, stop saying anything because I'm going to get sued. But the reality is a lot of patients, even if it's the doctor or hospital's fault, sometimes they just want them to acknowledge it and say, hey, we're sorry, we made a mistake, and come back. A simple thing, we'll pay for your airfare, you don't need to pay anything, come back and we'll fix the complication, and that's all the patient wants. But if you have that policy set up from the beginning of like an insurance company, this is how we'll deal with it, or we're going to require the hospitals to have in their agreement, if there's a complication and it's their fault, they're going to cover airfare and hotel and the surgical expense to recover it. Or if you're a hospital and you set that precedent in the beginning, you're not going to have these issues, because otherwise there's a complication, you're the hospital, you're going to have a meeting internally, what do we do? And someone might say, let's not talk to the patient, they might bring litigation, but then your reputation can be ruined overnight. That insurance company isn't going to send you patients anymore. It's a very small industry. They're going to tell other insurance companies, and soon people are going to know, don't send patients to these hospitals. But it's implementing these in your contracts, the liability, obviously you have the reinsurance, but you can also buy liability policies. Whether it's a facilitator or a hospital or an insurance company, you can buy policies that will cover you in these circumstances. And then you can also buy complication insurance policies. So there's a lot of options of how you can mitigate risk, but of course there's prices to those things. So some people say, I'm not going to buy the complication policy because it's 5% of the cost of the surgery, and it's too much. And we've seen facilitators who, for example, they won't offer complication policies because they feel like it increases the price of the procedure. That patient is talking to several other facilitators and they'll look less competitive, and then the hospitals make that same decision. And then the complication occurs and everyone's, oh crap, what do we do now? And they try to shift. So it's a big issue, I think as an industry that it has to face, as this is how we need to deal with complications, and we should have standard contracts and standard responsibilities. So, for our three panelists, who should be responsible? Who do you think has, if something goes wrong, what do you think coming, from your perspective, who should pay for it and what should be the steps taken in that case where the gauze is left in the patient?
I think it's more of what I said, relationships and trust. If the relationship was there between us and the particular hospital, then it would have been easy for them to say, okay, we'll send the patient back, we shall be able to manage the complications, but we'll give it to you maybe, or we'll do it at a reduced cost, or we'll do it at this cost. Then we'd be responsible maybe for paying the travel expenses and any other thing, rather than having it dumped on one particular party, because it's a joint effort to ensure that the patient gets a quality outcome. So it's better if it's managed by both parties, where it's a 50-50 bargain, rather than dumping it on one party, because they may not be able, or they may hide away from the problem and say, this is not our problem, it's for the insurance. So it's better you do it from that perspective. Yeah.
I think that the responsibility is finally in the hospital. That's why usually the hospital have to do everything to clear and to finish the case. It doesn't matter how big is the complication. if there is some deal before the treatment. Usually in this deal is saying that the complications are possible, and usually they have to say for whom it will be. But generally, the hospital is taking care for this problem. Okay, insurance maybe have some clauses that this is possible, and in this case, the hospital or the insurance company will take care. But finally, the hospital is the provider of the medical care.
Maybe I would take a different perspective, just to be different. I think insurers, why? It's only natural. We sold them insurance. We have a biggest, I would say, reputation risk, brand and promotions. So you need to act fast, and you need to have solutions. As you know, as we already said, you have some sort of solutions of lowering down the risk. But actually, I think insurers are the one who are selling, who are filtering, who are handling the claims process. So everything is up to insurers. The story behind who gets what in mitigation process and liability can go on, but the patient needs to be solved very swiftly, needs to be satisfied, and needs to be solved in this. If you want to be fast, without promotional and brand risk of, without reputation risk, you need to act fast, and you are the insurer, you are the business, and you can act fast. Hospital cannot do that. As I was saying, for example, hospital, mostly hospitals are focused on medical and expertise, not on management, and this is one of the reasons why we can react much faster.
Good answer. What needs to happen? We got a question. Yes.
Hello. Yeah, my name is Mohammed. I am the Chief Medical Officer of Gulf Aluminium. So one of the second largest aluminum industry in the Middle East. We have about 34 subsidiaries worldwide. I have a comment when it comes to the insurance. I've been dealing with the insurance for the last 17 years. We've seen a lot of patients out of Bahrain worldwide, and unfortunately my experience with the insurance was extremely bad. Most of the time their insurance really leave the patient confronting the hospital, and they not much of support that we really feel that when it comes to the moment. That's why I have tailored program that we are actually funding program to avoid all these problems that we face for many years. So we set the policy and we fund it ourselves. And that's because for many years of this experience we had, we didn't find the insurance really supportive when it comes to the very top cases, especially when it comes to the complication and recovery from those. This is just a comment. And I don't understand why insurance usually, when it comes to complication, they back up. They don't really support the patient. This is my comment.
When you self-fund the, is that just like charging them almost like a premium and then they get access to the medical care or surgeries?
Well, what we do is we fund the policy, and then we put some amount of money where they will run it according to our requirements. So we actually dictate what services we want and which hospital we want. So, and we are just funding and they are just administrating. They're getting the cost on that administration. And this is a unique program, and it's been run by many now large industries.
And which countries are you doing that in, the self-funding?
In Bahrain, we have 2 companies doing that, even in Saudi Arabia. And there are a few companies in UAE too, they're doing the same. Yeah.
Are there any, I know in certain countries there's regulations on, having to be a licensed insurance provider to do something like that. Is that not required in like Bahrain?
Yeah, it is required.
Yep.
But as I said, this is a new tailored program where most of the policy responsibility will be shouldered by the company itself.
Yeah.
And the idea why we come up with this is because of years of experience with the insurance we faced and with the problems that we faced, and then we tailor this program. Yeah.
So one question that I have is, what do you think needs to happen in the industry for medical tourism to be more scalable and for more insurance companies to adopt it and more of their members to travel abroad? Anyone?
I think that all of the hospitals, all of the medical providers have to understand that they have to be members of all kinds of big organization, because when all of the providers are thinking in one, they can understand the problems and they can dissolve the problems. If everybody doing his job alone, it will be very difficult. But the organizations, the big organizations, have to make big, wild the work, and to attract more members. And after that, the regulations will become a bit better and better.
I think what needs to be emphasized on is more on the visibility of medical tourism as far as each country is concerned. There's an increase in demand of the services from overseas, especially from the African context. It's more on oncology, cardiology, and orthopedic. So if you identify a target market, you need to understand what are their needs and what exactly do they need for you to be able to become their quality service provider. Otherwise, without that, you will just have all service providers trying to lure you into having a partnership, but it will not work. You'll sign the contract, yes, but eventually there'll be no traffic towards your hospital, or you'll not have any patients come to your facility because you rushed into the MOU and you didn't really study the market that you want to deal with. So visibility is very important. I think that's from the marketing aspect, of which you also need to make sure that you have quality standards so that the patient feedback or the success rates that you have managed to come up with through the patients are well delivered to the entire population. And also partnering with the local suppliers, in that you can come and do trainings to this other local community or the local hospitals, so that they can be able to create that trust and relationship that when we send our patient abroad, when they come back, they'll be managed in the same way that we desire to see on this other side, so that all the costs are not just dumped onto the local service provider due to the lack of advanced technology, basically.
Yeah. I would like to say that insurers will provide what the market wants. So I think insurers are maybe one of the interest groups in whole story, very complicated story about when we are talking about development of health tourism. So as we already said, it's the combination of the government, the infrastructure, the hospitals, the private funding, the private clinics, and the insurance as the last result. So all bunched together, we have the same goals. After that, we can have all together the same promotion, and I think the insurers will do the product if it's, first of all, if it's profitable, and if the market wants it. So, for example, in Croatia we have a problem. We cannot solve the insurance. We have like 8 million people going through the country, foreign tourists. So we have a law, strict law. We cannot sold the insurance to them by any means. So we went with the best doctors product. We went to the countries in ex-Yugoslavia, Serbia, Bosnia, Kosovo, and Macedonia. So we went them to sell the best doctors, and if the claims happens, we will focus on providing the service in Croatia. For example, you can do that, but it's not doing business in Croatia. It's doing business outside the Croatia to help the health tourism industry in development. So this is what the insurers can do, but not very much. So in volumes are not. It's very low on volumes. It's not a big volumes. They don't have a strength like a government or other insurers. Yeah.
Does anyone have any question for our panelists? Any insurance questions? before we head to coffee
Yeah.
and networking?
Gosh.
Okay, I want to thank our my esteemed panelists. I think it was a great dialogue, great insight and opinions, and it's these kind of conversations that we need to keep discussing to move this industry forward.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.